Thank you. Thank you for having me. Um, Thanks. We have a large turnout today for this important training. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of information. I'm with Disability Rights Arizona, which is the protection and advocacy system for Arizona. Today, we're going to talk about what you need to know when voting in Arizona. And my name is Ronaldo Fowler. I'm a senior staff advocate with Disability Rights Arizona, and I coordinate our protection and advocacy for voting access. Next slide, please. So I just want to give a disclaimer. This training is designed to provide general voter education information, and it is not intended to provide legal advice. Please check with your appropriate election officials. Next slide, please. So voting is a fundamental right. So it's real important that you know your rights, exercise your rights, and protect your rights. So we're going to talk about that today. Next slide. So a little bit of information about Disability Rights Arizona. For those who may not know, we changed our name in the I would say last year, within the year, from the Arizona Center for Disability Law to Disability Rights Arizona. The reason why we did that is we're part of the Protection and Advocacy Agency for Arizona, and we're part of a national disability rights protection and advocacy system across the United States. And so in each state and each territory, there's a disability rights organization. We are moving to a uniform name. So we're going to be Disability Rights Arizona, Disability Rights Oregon, Disability Rights California, Disability Rights Ohio. And so, but there are some agencies that still have their older names, but we're trying to be consistent. And what we do at Disability Rights Arizona, we're a not-for-profit public interest law firm dedicated to protecting the rights of individuals with a wide range of physical, mental, psychiatric, sensory, and cognitive disabilities. I have up on the screen our link to Disability Rights Arizona. I would encourage you to go to our website. We have many, many resources on our website around voting, special education, housing, vocational rehabilitation, and mental health. So we do a lot of work around protection of from restraint, seclusion, abuse, and neglect. Next slide, please. So the protection and advocacy for voter access, this is a program within Disability Rights Arizona. We call it PAVA. PAVA is a program within Disability Rights Arizona, was created by the Help America Vote Act of 2002. PAVA works to ensure full participation in the electoral process for persons with disabilities in registering to vote, casting a vote, and accessing voting locations. One of the things I want to be real clear is we're talking about full participation in the electoral process, not just voting. And we'll talk more about that. PAVA works to ensure your rights to a private and independent vote. That is our goal. Next slide. So the areas that we focus on at Disability Rights Protection Voter Access Program is voter registration. We identify barriers that may impact a voter with a disability right to register to vote, which include the issues around limited guardianship, transportation issues, and basic civil rights protection. Number two, voter participation. Voters with disabilities have many challenges getting to the polls to vote, making sure that the process that serves that community understands what their rights are in terms of if a person lives in a group home or any type of living situation, to assist that person and participate in voting. Number three, we do a lot of work around voter education like today. We want to make sure that you understand your voting rights so you can protect your rights. Number four, we work extensively with our election officials to Arizona. One of the focus that we really focus on is making sure that the process is accessible for the elections. Elections are held every couple of years, every 4 years. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done before the elections. And so we do a lot of work around working with election officials in terms of best practices. We don't talk a lot about the ADA. We talk about best practices. We talk about customer service. Yes, you're required to make sure you're required to follow the ADA, but we want to take it a step further, making sure that you provide administrate elections in a quality manner, like everyone else receive those services. And of course, number five, protecting voting rights. on election day and also the election cycle. On election day, we take phone calls through our hotline to resolve issues. I'll talk more about that later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, please put those questions in the chat and we will answer those questions as we go throughout the process today. I want to talk about some important dates that's up on the screen. October the 7th, 2024 is the last day to register to vote for the November the 5th general election. And you have to be registered by 11:59 p.m. to vote in the November 5th election. If you register the vote after October the 7th, you will be registered to vote, but you will not be able to vote in the November 5th election. One of the things that's really important, Arizona has many people move to this state, and they may come from a state that allow them have different times to register the vote. Some states do allow you to register the vote same day of the election. Arizona is not that state. So you need to be registered 29 days before the election to vote in that upcoming election. Okay. October the 9th, early voting begins. Early ballot mailed to voters on the active early voting lists. Okay. Voters can request a one-time ballot for the November 5th elections. And you really need to do this a minimum of 11 days before the election if you're requesting a one-time ballot. October the 25th is the deadline for accepting a request for ballot by mails for the November the 5th general election. And November the 1st is the deadline for voting early in person for the November 5th general election. So these are some important days. So make sure that you understand. If you need or have questions, we'll talk more about this, about your voter registration status. You need to really check it now, 29 days before the election, make sure everything's okay. Oftentimes people think they are registered to vote. They may have moved, got married. So keep that in mind. Next slide. So on November the 5th is the general election. And we're going to talk more about this. But remember, if you receive information with different dates from phone calls or anyone saying they're representing someone, please check with your election officials to make sure that you're getting the correct information. Okay, next slide. So in this election, we have our typical issues around voters with disabilities in terms of making sure polling places are accessible, making sure the parking lots are accessible, making sure that the curbside voting, if you have curbside voting, all of those things that we traditionally have worked with around improving voters with disabilities. However, this election, our election officials and Recorder Casares Kelly may speak more about this, but one of the things that's really important is misinformation. During this election, voters are going to be faced with misinformation, disinformation. On the screen, misinformation, false or inaccurate, especially which are deliberately intended to deceive. Disinformation, false information, which is intended to mislead. So there's going to be a lot of information that's going to come out at you from social media, TV ads, phone calls with information that might be misleading. Please do not make decisions on misinformation. If you have questions, if you receive a phone call, an email, or text, or whatever type of messaging you may receive, Facebook or any other social media, saying that election dates have changed or doing all these different things, please check with your election officials. We're going to talk more about that, your Secretary of State, your recorders, your election directors. So keep that in mind. Arizona is going to be targeted. It's one of these states that a lot of money is going to be spent messaging. So be aware of that. And they are going to be focusing a lot on voters with disabilities and folks from underserved areas. Number two, voter intimidation. As you may know, in the last election, we have a lot of issues around individuals with drop boxes, with guns, fatigue, cameras, microphones. Our Secretary of State has a document regarding conduct around the election process and around polling locations. So keep this in mind. If you feel that you're threatening, please reach out to the appropriate law enforcement. Also talk with your election officials if you have any questions about some additional resources that they may put in place to make sure that you are safe during the election. And so, not to trying to scare anyone, but I just want everyone to be aware these are two major areas that have been identified by our election officials who run elections in Arizona. Next slide. Are there any questions so far?
Yes, there is a question in the chat, Ronaldo.
Yes.
Joaquin asks, hi, my name is Joaquin. I am from Arizona. How do you prevent fraud in an election? Thank you.
Well, I will let the recorder speak about that. I am not really aware of a lot of fraud, but I think the appropriate person to respond to that is your election official that's going to be presenting today to address any issue of fraud.
Yes, I can share a little bit about that later. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what's important is as you prepare to vote, up on the screen, there is a really good website that really gives you some good information on how to make a plan to vote. It talks about transportation, it talks about a lot of different things. And so one of the things I really want to encourage you to do is make a plan to vote. And number one, you want to vote early and you want to vote often, okay? In Arizona, you can vote under limited guardianship, and we really push that in terms of supportive decision-making. We recently had a Court of Appeals case in Arizona that now will provide additional protections and safeguards for individuals trying to maintain their voting rights in Arizona. So that's something fairly new, and we're just trying to work out what does that really mean. But the courts have given persons with disabilities additional protections if someone's trying to remove those rights to vote, okay? And also keep this in mind, oftentimes we hear people talk about if they have power of attorney, they can make that decision for that person if they can and cannot vote. Remember, courts have to remove your rights to vote once you turn the age of majority. Also, do you have valid ID? And so we just had a court case around ID and proof of citizenship. So we'll talk a bit more about that. Do you know where to vote? That's very important. Oftentimes people will say, well, I voted at this precinct for the last 10 years. Well, precincts may change, vote centers may change. And remember this, elections are ran at the county level. In Maricopa County, we have vote centers. Pima County has now moved to the vote center model. We still have counties that still have precincts. So you reach out to your county election official, and the recorder will speak probably more about vote centers and how they vote in Pima County. Request accommodations ahead of time. Very important. If you need any accommodations, please reach out to your election officials as early as possible. And we'll talk more about that, requesting Braille large print. So, if you reach out on election day and ask for accommodations, it may be very difficult. So you want to really do that ahead of time. Give our election officials an opportunity to make sure they can meet your needs. Next slide. Okay, so I'm still talking more about make a plan to vote. Also, will you need a ride to the polls? Keep in mind, there may be some delays on election day. Check with your vote centers or your precincts wait times. In Maricopa County, we have vote centers, so different vote centers may have shorter wait times, so that information will be available on the county websites. Trusted election information. Again, I just want to reiterate this. It is very crucial that you really reach out to your election officials who runs elections at the local level to provide you with trusted information. There's so much misinformation out there, and some of it looks really official, but please reach out to your election officials, okay? Also research the candidates and the issues. Very important. Do your research. There's different places that you can get this information about the candidates. and the issues. Also, Arizona Clean Elections is a great organization. They do a great job of providing voter education information. Next slide. So let's talk about registering to vote. In Arizona, you can register to vote at Service Arizona if you have a driving license or state-issued ID. Those are the two documents that you can register to vote as Service Arizona. Also, when you register to vote, select a manner in which is best for you. You can register to get on the active early voting list, okay? That means that your ballot will be sent to you by mail in every qualified election. Remember, one of the things that's really important, Arizona used to call this the permanent early voting list. Now it's called the active early voting list. So you want to make sure that you receive your ballots in the mail. Make sure you vote early and you vote often. If you miss a number of elections, they will remove you from the active early voting list, but you still will be registered to vote. They will notify you before they remove you from the active early voting list. So remember to vote often and vote early. Also, check your voter registration and update prior to the deadline, okay? So that's one of the things you want to do, because some counties do purge the vote rolls. So you want to make sure at least 29 days as soon as possible, you check your voter registration status to make sure you're still good to go and you're registered to vote. Oftentimes people move, get married, they forget to change their voter registration, okay? Very important. Next slide. Valid identification. There's been so much discussion about what is valid identification. You can go to the Arizona Secretary of State website and it has a list of valid identification. Your state issued driving license, state issued IDs. They also have a lot of different documents that you can take in that's considered valid identification. Also, for members of recognized tribal nations, they have a list at the Secretary of State's office, a list of identification that you can use in elections. So that's really important. That's very important that you have your appropriate ID so you don't have any challenges when you're trying to vote. Next slide, please. Any questions so far?
No,
Okay.
I see no questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you. So as we just mentioned, voter ID, sometimes getting the documents that you need, such as birth certificates, ID, to register the vote can be challenging. There is an organization called Vote Riders that can assist you in getting the necessary documents so you can register the vote. Vote Rider mission is to ensure that no eligible voter is prevented from casting a ballot that counts due to voter ID laws, either directly or from the lack of acceptable ID, or indirectly because of voter confusion. All the services are free. It's called Vote Riders. So if you're having some challenges of getting the documents that you need to register the vote, you can reach out to Vote Riders. It's a nonpartisan organization. Their main focus is to make sure that you participate in the voting process. Okay? Next slide, please. Now, you cannot register to vote in Arizona. You have been convicted of a felony and have not had your civil rights restored. First-time felony convictions, civil rights are automatically restored upon completion of a person's sentence and payment of any restitution. Now, ACLU has some information on how to get your voting rights back. So we have a link on how you can look at that information and see how you can return and get your voting rights back and exercise your rights to vote. Now you cannot vote if you have been adjudicated incapacitated person by the court of law. Okay, so that's really important that the courts will make that decision if you're an incapacitated person. Okay, remember what I said to you earlier. I've heard that family members will say, I have the power of attorney or medical power of attorney. Remember this, courts are the ones that take away your rights to vote. Okay, next slide. Now, ways to vote. So it's really important that you explore and select your voting option. In person, by mail, curbside voting where it's appropriate, and early voting. As I mentioned earlier, request your accommodation in a timely manner prior to the election, such as large print, braille ballots, and also we're going to talk about the special election board. Next. So what I've done is I've picked the 3 most populated counties, and remember this, all of our 15 counties are required to provide you accommodations to assist you to vote. However, I did list the Maricopa County Voter Assistance link, Pima County, and Pinal County. And remember, each county runs the elections, and the level of services that they provide are done by county, but counties are required to provide you assistance in voting, in the voting process. Next slide. So some of you may have or not heard of the Special Election Board. Many of our counties do have special election boards. So please check with your counties that's operated at the county level. But special election boards will help you cast a vote. If you're ill or have a disability, they can also assist you in registering to vote. So what is a special election board? They are made up of 2 members of different political parties who are trained to support voters in a secure, confidential, and accessible manner. Contact your county elections office for information, eligibility through the special election board. So that special election board can come to your home, to individuals who can assist you in voting, or if you're in a nursing home or hospital, they can come and assist you in the voting process. So this is a very, very important resource. So please check with your county elections officials for eligibility, make an appointment, what the timelines are. So these are operated county by county. Okay, next slide. As I mentioned to you earlier, trusted elections information. We have the link for the Arizona Secretary of State's office, which is our chief election officials. There is a website so you can identify your county recorders, and we have Pima County Recorder today is going to be presenting. We have election departments that are operated separate from the recorder's office, and so the recorder, she can kind of explain the difference. Arizona Citizens Clean Election is our nonpartisan state agency that does a lot of work around voter education. And also, if you have questions at the federal level, the United States Election Assistance Commission in Washington, D.C. is a great resource for information. I'm just going to really stress information. Information is going to be coming at you, and it's already coming at you. And it may be false information, misleading information, artificial intelligence. So everybody's just doing their very best to influence your ability to vote and make decisions. Next slide. So if you go to the polls, all polling locations are supposed to be ADA accessible. That means that the parking lot, the path to voting, the voting location, accessible voting machines are supposed to be on. All of that's supposed to happen. If you go to a polling location, if the curbside, the parking is blocking the curbside voting, if the equipment is not working to signal the election workers to tell them someone's outside, there's going to be an individual at the polling location who's going to be in charge. They have different names. They can be called an inspector, a judge, or marshal. It's really kind of up to the counties, kind of the name of these individuals, but they have a responsibility to make sure that if any issues are happening at the polling location, they are supposed to be there to assist you to resolve any of those issues on election day. Okay, next slide. So as I mentioned to you earlier, on election day, we run a hotline. We open it up at 6 o'clock. We close it at 7 p.m. during the election cycle. And we take phone calls from individuals who may have some issues around voting. However, the majority of those calls we get are really non-disability related calls, or many of those calls are, where's my polling location? But we do receive several calls around issues of voting. Examples, as I mentioned to you earlier, the accessible voting machine is off. The workers don't know how to put it, turn it back on and get it to work, or they might be a rude poll worker. A lot of phone calls we get are the parking lots are full, the accessible locations are blocked by vehicles that don't have the plates on them. So we get those kind of calls around election day, on election day. These calls come from across the state of Arizona, from the north to the south. So we try to get these calls resolved on election day. Next slide. So the reason why we try to get these issues resolved on election day, if they're not resolved on election day and you're not able to vote, you're going to get disenfranchised. So you're not going to be able to get that vote back. So there's different ways that we try to do this. We can provide you some self-advocacy tips on the phone. If need be, we'll reach out directly with county election officials and say, hey, we just got a call this polling location. The accessible voting machine's not working, it's down. Or we've got calls, there's a poll worker that's wearing political, partisan, clothing on them. And so what we try to do is we try to work with our election officials to move very swiftly to resolve whatever issues that you may have so you can vote on election day. So that's one of the things that we strive very hard to do, is to make sure on election day you get an opportunity to vote a regular ballot. But remember, if you're not able to resolve, always request a provisional ballot and vote a provisional ballot. Next slide. So this is the end of my presentation. I just want to give you just kind of some key points what we talked about. Number one, trusted elections information. I cannot overstress that because you're going to be hitting with so much information that's going to be having a chilling effect on the election. So I really want you to do that. Make sure you have a plan to vote. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your election officials. If you are a person that uses accessible voting equipment, reach out to your election officials. They may have a video on the demonstration of how that equipment operates. But one of the things, I want to just reiterate to everyone, your election officials are waiting to respond to any questions that you have about the integrity of the election, the concerns that you may have. I would really encourage you to reach out to your election officials, Secretary of State's office, cleaning elections, your county recorders, and your county election directors. So I want to turn it over to Pima County Recorder to do her presentation and to answer any additional questions that you may have. Are there any questions in the chat before I go off screen?
So Ronaldo, there are no questions in the chat, but Joaquin says, thank you, a great job. Hopefully our election is fair and transparent. So again, this is an opportunity, if you have any questions, to post them in a chat or wait until the end of the presentation. All the resources that Ronaldo had mentioned are also in the chat. They are linked there. We will also have them available with the recording once that goes out by email. Thank you again for a wonderful presentation, Ronaldo.
Thank you.
I don't see any questions, so we will move on to our Pima County Recorder, Gabriela Cazares Kelly, who will be presenting next. Gabriela?
Hi there. I usually start with a traditional introduction in my traditional language. So I just want to give a heads up to my interpreters. Skuktash, Anya Nepchugi, Gabriela Cazares Kelly, Bisma Ochkuk Amjun, Anya Woodkapima, Chukshan Ohahandam, Hi, everybody. My name is Gabriela Cáceres Kelly. I'm from the communities of Bisonmoo and Cook, which are located on the Tohono Nation. As mentioned earlier, I am the first Native American to hold a countywide seat in Pima County and have been in this role almost 4 years now. I am a brown, middle-aged, Indigenous woman with long hair. I'm wearing my hair down. I have some bright, desert-themed earrings today and a polka dot shirt. And I'm sitting in my office, which is brightly colored and has a lot of, colorful, signs and paintings on the wall. So first I want to address the question that was presented earlier about the integrity of voting. My office is responsible for voter registration and early voting for the county. What that means is it is actually the first line of defense in election integrity. My office is responsible for maintaining the voter rolls. And so every single day of the year, people are submitting changes to their voter records or new voter registration. And what our office does is we go through a very complicated set of laws to ensure that everyone who is eligible to vote is registered. And so there is no possibility of people stuffing ballots that aren't attributed to an individual. The other thing that happens is we are mailing things to voters, and if we receive them back, that is an indication that that is not a good address for us. We cannot mail things to businesses. We can't, we have a lot of laws that we have to follow here. And so we're ensuring that people are receiving the mail that we're sending them. And then if they are voting by mail, it's really important for you all to know the reason that we ask you to check your voter registration form is, or to check your voter registration record every single time, is because often people will move and they will do a change of address form with the US Post Office, but that does not change your voter registration for elections. We cannot forward election mail. And so that's something that's very important for people. If you move, please check with us, please check with our office. And you can do that online or you can give us a call. Either way, we're very happy. We're always excited when you call our office. So I have a PowerPoint I'm going to bring up, and actually I figured out how to do it so that it doesn't show as presentation mode. Give me 1 second. You go to display settings and swap. Okay, so can you see the presentation? Agnes, can I get a
Yes.
thumbs up? Okay, there we go.
Yes. Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you. So voting accessibility in Pima County. So this is, as Ronaldo mentioned, there are 15 counties in Arizona. All of them vary. All of them are different. My responsibility is voter registration and early voting. It's the 27 days before an election. Election day is facilitated by the elections department, which is a different department, but we'll talk about all of that. And so today is September 9th. Gabriela Cáceres Kelly, Pima County Recorder. I have a beautiful logo that has a book with sunshine displayed and a line through the middle indicating the two separations between voter registration and early voting, and then also document recording, which mainly has to do with property. We're not going to talk about that today for time reasons. Important election dates. November 5th is the general election, but as Ronaldo mentioned, we have some updates coming very soon, some important dates. First of all, we mail to military and overseas voters, we mail them an electronic ballot or a paper ballot on September 21st. So by September 21st, people will be voting and we will have voted ballots here on the premises. So we actually go into an election, a live election, 45 days before election day. The last day to register to vote is October 7th. Early voting begins just 2 days after that. It's a Wednesday, and early ballots are mailed in Pima County, right here in Pima County. They don't come from Phoenix. They're coming distributed from Tucson, and those ballots will be mailed out to households. The last day to request a mail ballot is October 25th. So for those of you who are signed up to receive a mail ballot every time, your ballot will go out on October 9th. But let's say that you didn't, or maybe somebody in your household saw that you have a ballot and they're like, I want my ballot too. I didn't know I was going to be sent out of town. You still have all the way up till October 25th to still request a ballot. I think that's always really helpful for people to know. And then we want you to mail it back as soon as possible. That's a deadline. That's a suggested deadline there, October 29th. And then election day is Tuesday, November 5th. And you can find this calendar on our website in both English and in Spanish. So I want to talk about the voting options. You can vote one time by mail if you want. If you're just this one time, you're going to be out of town and you need that ballot early, you can call us. You can go onto our website and you can request that ballot just one time. Or you can sign up with the active early voting list, as Ronaldo was talking about, and you can get it every single time. A one flag for anybody who is doing this: if you are an independent voter or no party designated voter, that means you haven't chosen a party. And although you're still eligible to vote in those elections often, you usually have to tell us which ballot you want. So we won't, even if you vote Republican every single time, we won't know that that's your preference in this specific election. So you're going to have to request it. So that's the only thing that I want to flag for you. We have Braille ballots, large print ballots. And when we say large print, I have a photo of them a little later in the slideshow, but they're very large. We call them like tablecloths. We have the military and overseas voting, and that is very interesting because those voters who qualify for military and overseas, that could be just somebody who's on a cruise. Maybe you're going to be living it up on some ocean somewhere, and you're not going to have access to a ballot in any other way. You would qualify as an overseas voter, and you actually have the entire 45 days from September all the way to November to register. So even if you hadn't been registered, you could still register up until election day at 7 p.m. You can vote early in person, which is something that I love. We love to see you. Please come. You can vote early on an accessible voting device. Team voting, which is when we come to you, and that's very limited. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware. We are a very small shop we carefully vet people. We'll talk about it in a bit. Emergency voting, which is really the same thing as early voting. And honestly, the recorders in the state have been trying to get this name changed because we think it discourages people from utilizing those services, but everyone is welcome. And you can drop your ballot off early in person at during any of that time. I'm going to put drop off your mail ballot on election day at a vote center. This, you may notice, all of the other bullet points that I had were in dark purple. This one is in light purple because it's kind of early voting, but it's on election day. And so because of the discrepancy, we actually call these late earlies. They have a nickname. And if you are wanting your ballot results to be included on what you see on online on election day, if you want to be a part of the results, you need to drop off your ballot well before then, because those late earlies don't get processed until the day after election. I have a new box here that says vote in person on election day. It's in yellow. And vote in person on an accessible voting device, or vote in your car on election day. Those three are in yellow because a different office oversees those options, but I do want to make sure that you know, sometimes we don't know when we're going to need accessible services. Sometimes people break their ankles the day before election or on election day, or there are different situations. What I will tell you is because my office is so much smaller than elections, we typically hire about 120 people for all of our early voting services. Anybody who's working in my sites is going to be there for a minimum of 6 days, where they are working on this equipment, they are interacting with the public. So they're automatically going to have a lot more training than anybody who is working on election day. I'm very thankful for the people who work on election day. We could not do election day without them. But typically here in Pima County, there's over 1,000 people that are hired for election day. And somebody who is using the accessible voting device is only going to have had 1 day of opportunity to train on that machine. As opposed to our locations, we're going to have people who have been using them for 6 days. So, accessible voting services, vote by mail and active early voting list. No excuse vote by mail. In other states, you have to explain what your excuse is every single time you ask for a ballot. That it does not happen here in Pima County or in Arizona. You don't need to have an excuse. You want to vote by mail, you can vote by mail. You can vote from the privacy of your own home, which is really beautiful. And you can spend more time with your ballot. One really important thing to know in this election, there are so many initiatives and the ballot is so long that in many jurisdictions, including here in Pima County, Maricopa, and Pinal, we will all have 2 separate sheets of paper for our ballots. That means a front page and a back, and then another front page and a back. So that's 4 pages. And so if you think about how you're going to have to go through and mark every single thing, if you have questions, it's really beautiful for people to be able to sit in front of their computers or sit with their friends and family, sit with their phone and have everything out so that they can make informed decisions. That's a really big benefit of early voting. And you can receive assistance from the assistant of your choosing. So it could be anybody you trust in your circle. The postage is paid, of course, and you can still drop off in person early or on election day, anytime. Like I said, the earlier the better, please. And this slide has a photo of an early mail ballot partially covered by a yellow return envelope and a white ballot affidavit. There's a space for the voter to sign and an additional area for a voter assistant to fill out. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So I want to talk a little bit about signatures. That's a important thing that people ask about. We are following the Secretary of State Signature Verification Guide, and we're looking for broad and local characteristics that match your voting record. It doesn't have to be exact. So a lot of times we get people asking like, oh my gosh, I forgot to put my middle name. Is that going to invalidate my signature? No, 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 no. We're looking for characteristics of your signature as a whole. But a really best practice is take a look at, if you have a driver's license, take a look at the signature on your driver's license, because we likely have that signature on file. And that guide can be found at the Secretary of State's website, and you can get really wonky and nitty gritty in there with what we're looking for a signature. The next is images of my personal signatures. So I actually went into my voter record and I pulled up all of these instances where we have a copy of my signature. And so as you notice, the very first one, it just says, actually, there are 4 of them that say Gabriela O. Casares. And they're pretty similar. You can see that they all have very similar G's. I draw a very large lowercase letter G My C's are very distinct. I have a very loopy Z. And then you can see when I updated my name to my married name, which is Gabriela Cáceres Kelly. And then you can see I just pulled up a new image where it just says GABRC Kelly. And all of a sudden my signature has changed and I'm abbreviating. You can tell that I've gotten sick of such a long name. And then I have an image of a ballot affidavit signature, and this just says GC Kelly. But if you look and compare major characteristics, you can see that the G, the C, and the K are all the same, as is my Y. And so that is something that would be accepted, and I'm just writing initials, right? And so sometimes we have to just be a little bit more mindful of, oh, if I have multiple signatures, which one did I use? Let me take a look at my driver's license. And then you may get a phone call. So when we talk about a voter assistant, the level of the voter assistant is dependent on the voter's needs. The voter, you can use it however you want. A voter may use an assistant of their choice, or if you come into our early voting site, the voting site staff can help you. I will caution, however, that if you are coming in with your assistant of choice, and you bring that person to an early voting site, number one, we cannot give you the ballot to leave. The ballot has to be voted on the premises. And if you have an assistant, just be mindful that they should not be giving you recommendations, or if you're an assistant, you should not be giving any recommendations on who to vote for. It's really just, can you read this or fold this or fill out this button, fill out this circle, or whatever it is to indicate the voter's wishes, but it should be coming from the voter. So the voter selections must be independent, and the assistant may read the ballot to the voter, mark the voter's selections, assist with the envelope, and return the ballot. The assistant must sign in addition to the voter. And so what does that look like? So these are samples, and in one image, you can just see that there is an X in the X portion. That is the voter's mark, and that is all they're able to write, then that is their signature. And it does not have to resemble their name whatsoever. If that's what they have on file, then that's what we're going to compare it against. We do ask for the date and a phone number, and that phone number is extremely crucial for voters who are requesting a voter assist or who are using a voter assist, because we're going to call you. And I'll talk about some exceptions in a second. But then we have the assistant who would sign in addition to the voter, and then their name and their address. And if a person is able to sign normally, you know, I voted with my mom just recently, and she couldn't fill out the bubbles on the ballot. She had me read aloud, and then she made her choices verbally, and I marked them down. And then but she could sign her own. She has muscle memory to sign it. And it takes her a little while longer, but she could do it. So she wanted to sign her own ballot, and I still signed as a voter assist. The signature verification and voter record, the processing ballot affidavit with the voter assist. So the signature is still compared against the voter's record, and staff will review the voter's record for assist notes. So if the voter is always signing with an X, or if your signature is going to change every single time, that might be something that is listed in the voter notes in the record. The voter staff may call each time based on the voter's wishes. So the very first time that we receive a ballot that has a voter assist on there, we automatically will call the voter. And if the voter says, yeah, I just hurt my hand, I broke it, I'm not gonna need help the next time, it was just this one time, we're not gonna put anything in their file. We're not gonna do anything. We're just gonna accept the ballot. Like, oh, okay, this was the person, you confirmed your identity, great. But if a person says, yes, I'm gonna need help every single time, and I don't really need to have a phone call every single time. I have my family members who can do that for me. Can you please just put that I'm going to have a different signature each time? We will honor the wishes and we will put that in the voter record. If somebody says, no, I want you to call every single time, we're gonna just leave that blank and we're gonna call every single time. It's really up to you. So next slide, I have an accessible voting services. Image description is a large print ballot. This is approximately 2 feet by 16 inches, and it sits next to a standard ballot, which is 8.5 by 14 inches. So you can see it's much bigger. This is a small ballot. So there was very few choices on this ballot. In the presidential election, there will be like 6 feet long ballots. It will be very long. But you're still able to vote in the privacy of your own home. Ballots are duplicated using an express voting machine. Upon receipt, we have 2 people of opposite parties who agree on the voter's intention, and then we will, not we, the elections department will do this. They will mark your ballot to reflect your choices, and they have to agree. The Pima County Recorder's Office, we call the voter to ensure that they know to expect the large print ballot. So it's coming in a larger package with additional materials. All of the materials have been carefully designed so that they are larger, so that the print font is much larger. And we're happy to mail those out. If you would like one of those, please just call our office and let us know that you would like one. We also have Braille ballots. So this has an image of a Braille ballot, which looks like a little booklet with raised dots, and hands are reading the ballot. And the Braille and large prints are designed and printed by the elections department, and the transcription is provided by the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind. And then this happens the same way, where 2 people of opposite party, actually staff members from ASDB, will verify those signatures and interpret the responses. And the Pima County Recorder's Office, again, we call voters to let them know to expect these ballots. And we would really love feedback on what is best, what could be more helpful for these ballots. And again, if requesting those, please just call our office and we will make it happen. Accessible voting services, we do have wheelchair accessible voting booths. They're wide-legged private voting booth that provides writing surface for a voter. So you see that we have an image of them here, and they're next to your standard size booths. So those are standard in every location. However, we found that it is, many people still need to sit down, especially if it's a really long ballot. It could be an elder, it could be a mom with her kids, it could be just whoever, maybe someone hurt their foot, or they just really are not at the right angle for hunching over into the voter booth. So we have a table with chair and privacy screen at all of our locations also. I cannot guarantee that for the elections day, but my staff specifically thought, this is a really simple accommodation that helps a lot of people. And people do enjoy sitting to vote, especially if the ballot is very long. So the image description is a photo of a 6-foot-long white plastic table with 2 chairs and 2 cardboard privacy screens in a voting location. The screen has an image of a waving American flag in red, white, and blue, and the word vote is below the flag. And if in order to use that, you really just need to tell the staff at the early voting site. And a lot of times you don't even have to ask if the seat is available. You can go and help yourself. We have accessible voting services, the Express Vote Machine. This is a really cool, this is actually how I choose to vote every single time. I use the Express Voting Machine. It's a ballot marking device that can be operated by touch screen or a keypad, and there's a picture of the machine and the keypad and a set of earphones. The device can read ballots to the voter via headphones. There's large print options available. You can make the print larger. You can have multiple languages on this device. So if you need translation, and you can also change the contrast. Voter marks selections and can return to any race to make changes before a final review. It's very easy to use. The voter reviews the selection, and selections are printed on a cardstock ballot. So it doesn't retain anything. It is printing out your selections, and those selections can be read. It'll show your choices and only your choices. The ballot is folded, and we place that in a ballot affidavit, and the signature is still required. But again, as I said, this is how I choose to vote, and I did that. I do that. I actually pick any site at any time, because I found that the first election that I facilitated, I wasn't 100% sure that my staff knew how to operate these machines, and voters deserve to not feel segregated. They deserve to feel as if this is a standard process, because it is. This is about dignity and respect and pride when you're voting. And so I wanted to make sure that people could come in and vote seamlessly without interruption, without hearing grumblings from staff. So the very first time I did it, my staff kind of, like, oh, can we review these instructions before you come do that? And I said yes. And I came back at a later time and they says, this feels like when your mother-in-law comes over. And so, which is good. My staff is expecting the recorder to show up at any site to vote, because and I'm expecting for this to be easy and seamless for everybody. This is also our backup. So if we have a power outage or something like that, the express ballot marking devices actually operate on battery. So there are backup devices. And the day that we had a global internet outage, we were still able to issue ballots and have people marking those ballots on this. So it is very much a real part of our everyday operations. And so I encourage all people to try these out because they are really helpful. Team voting. So as Ronaldo said, we could actually come to you. This is very, very limited. I really want to stress that if you have the opportunity to request a ballot, vote at home, have somebody help you by getting your ballot returned, that is most helpful for us. But if you can't leave, things come up. If you find yourself in the hospital or a rehabilitation center, in jail, or you're just not able to leave your home, there may be an option for you. We may be able to come to you. And again, I'm just always stressing that these are limited resources. What'll happen is you call and you're going to tell us what is going on, and we're gonna recommend it for you and say, oh, we actually have this service. Let me get you connected, and we'll have someone call you, talk about your situation, because we want to always make sure that you're safe. And we will deploy a team of 2, and we also have Spanish speakers, so it's always going to be a Democrat or Republican who come into your home or come into your space, and they're going to give you the ballot, depending on what you need. Sometimes people just need the ballot to be there, and they're fine, and they fill it out themselves, and return it. Sometimes people are going to need, people to read the ballot, mark the ballot, do all of those things. So whatever it is, depending on the need, we'll have that conversation. But the bipartisan teams visit the voter at an appointed time and provide them with the ballot on site. We cannot leave it. And then just in case we bring multiple ballots, just in case there's a mistake that is made, we have up to 3, and then we bring everything there, we take everything back. And then also if there are changes, like let's say, part of the reason you didn't get your ballot was because you recently moved, we can also register you at that time. And so there's just an image that shows a ballot and materials with a pen. We've also really stepped up our social media and actually just our accessibility services as a whole throughout the whole office. We have really spent a lot of time evaluating our website to make sure that it's capable of e-readers, and so that all of our images have descriptions and all of the PDFs are readable as well. That's been very important for us. So we've implemented an accessibility webpage and adopted it by Pima County Communications. We've focused on accessible social media posts. So you'll see that we are now including image descriptions, Spanish versions, and it's very, very important. I'm actually one of the main drivers. Majority of things have to go through me, and I have to I will say to my staff, this is legal language. A voter isn't going to understand this. And so we spend a lot of time really thinking about what everyday people who are not just surrounded by legal language 24/7, because it's really easy to talk in acronyms. It's really easy to talk using legal terms. But what does that mean for your everyday voter, for your college student, for your Starbucks worker, for anybody, just really anybody? And so we spend a lot of time discussing that here in the office. And so this image description is a screenshot of our social media post that includes a video with American Sign Language alerting voters to the upcoming voter registration deadline. And so we are working with the county communications department as a whole, and are taking into consideration everything will either have captions or ASL interpretation. We'll have Spanish versions available, and we're always trying to just shake it up, trying to make that more engaging for voters. One thing that I strongly encourage everybody, please sign up for ballot email or text alerts. You can do this on our website, recorder.pima.gov. And what this is when we mail you a ballot, we will send you a text message that says, hey, your ballot is on the way, so you know to look for it. And then we will send you an alert once we've received your ballot, when it's been signature verified, when it's been turned over to the elections department, or if we're experiencing a question, we have a question for you, we're gonna communicate that by text, and that's been very effective for us. And so I have a little image of a little metal bird reading text messages. And it says, official Pima County Recorder's Office, your name here. You have opted to receive text messages notifying you of your status of your early ballot. To stop receiving notifications, please text back stop. These are very, very helpful. This information is available on our website too, but that means that the voter has to come and look for that information, whereas these email or text message alerts will automatically go out for the voter. So I'm going to stop there, but please feel free to contact us any way that you find useful. visit our website, recorder.pima.gov. You can call our phone, 724, 520-724-4330. And you can follow us at Pima Recorder on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And I will stop there if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Gabriella, for a very informative presentation, especially regarding the early voting, the express voting machine.
Yes.
So that was very interesting. And also with the texting, I just signed up right now, so hopefully I'll be able to sign up. I'm an early voter person, so I get all my stuff by mail. But awesome. Thank you very much. Very informative. And so now we have an opportunity for folks who are on this webinar to ask questions. And so we have until 12:30. So please, if you have questions, you can put your questions in the chat for either Gabriella, Cazares Kelly, or Ronaldo Fowler regarding voting, specifically on the presentations they did in accessing and accommodations, and also rights. And if you have any concerns regarding voting rights. Let's see, nothing in the chat right now. And if you'd like to speak, please use your hand raise button to speak and ask your question.
Since I'm not
Yes,
seeing,
Gabrielle.
since I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, I would like to go back to the elections integrity portion, if that's okay. I think that's
Yes,
something
please do.
I think that's something that many
Mhm.
people are really concerned about. And, you know, we have not seen any credible evidence of widespread voter fraud. Voter fraud, it's really interesting. If we come across attempts, I will be very, very mindful to use that word, attempts. It is very, very difficult for somebody to knowingly thwart the system somehow, to get in multiple ballots. And if they do, we have safeguards in place. So if somebody submits a ballot by mail and then shows up to vote on election day, what's going to happen is if it's already recorded that that person has been issued a ballot and we've received that ballot back, that person can only vote a provisional ballot. And sometimes we see, like, typically elders, like this year in particular, there have been 3 elections. There was the presidential preference election, the primary election, and the general election. And sometimes people forget. They're like, did I mail that back, or did I just leave it on my desk at work, or where is my ballot? It happens to everybody. It's okay. But you know, if people show up and they say, no, I did not vote, and we can see it on our end, we can say, no, we're positive you voted, but we can give you a provisional ballot. And a provisional ballot, it sounds really scary, but it's actually a really nice safety for the voter. There is an option for you no matter what the situation. Let's say, for example, that you lost your driver's license the day before elections, and then you went home and you were like, well, I know if I have my voter ID card and a piece of mail, I can go vote. And you can't find a piece of mail. Like maybe you just cleaned your apartment, everything's gone. If you show up with insufficient identification, we'll still give you a ballot. We're not gonna turn it over to the elections department until, you know, maybe the day after you've gone and gotten a new copy of your, you know, whatever, your phone bill or something like that. You have some sufficient proof the day after election. We're gonna be able to take it and say, oh, this person did provide sufficient. Now we can move it over to the elections department. So there's an option no matter what situation you're running into. And I think that's really important. Another thing that has been brought up a lot has been the questions about, um, uh, oh gosh, um, oh my gosh, um, having to do with, power of attorney. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
Power of attorney, with people who are, under guardianship, or something like that. This has been a really confusing, situation for them. Basically, we're not checking here in our office, whether or not somebody is eligible in that way, whether or not they have a legal guardianship, or not. That is something that would be brought up if there was a complaint made by that power of attorney. And so I think that's a really important thing to know. And I know that a lot of people are really concerned about that. And that's one of the ways that people are disenfranchised, when they're in that type of situation. And I think that's a conversation for legislators to be able to make that change. That is something that has to be a change in law. It can't be just my preference, like I'm with mom and child who is of voting age, and one is a power of attorney for legal reasons because they're taking care of their finances and that sort of thing. But that person is able to express their personal will and their personal opinion on who they want to vote for. And even if I had that evidence of a parent and their child in front of me, I could not authorize that. That is something that would need to be a law that's changed. And so I recommend that those of you who are talking to legislators be talking about a way, to make that happen, because everything that we have, we can't. So
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for those last comments. Yeah, and I was going to ask Ronaldo if you had any other follow-up information you wanted to share as well,
yeah,
specifically with powers of attorney.
yeah. Well, actually, I think what I want to just continue to focus on, I know I'm talking about it a lot, but um, the whole issue of information, how information is going to be used um, to influence people's decisions on how they vote. It could be just as much information saying that the election vote center has changed its hours, they close early, they change the location, or there's an activity going at the polling locations. You should not go vote at any of the polling locations because of an incident. So those are the things that I think I want everyone to keep in mind. And also, if you decide to vote or exercise your right to vote and you get any type of threat before you vote in any manner, please, refer that to law enforcement. Our election officials are aware that some of these things that may happen. And number two or three is this whole issue of voter integrity. We've been voting in Arizona by mail for over a quarter of a century. And our election officials will tell you, I record, I may be wrong, but I don't know too many places they've stuffed those drop boxes anywhere, as long as I've known it. So it's a lot of information, misinformation that's out there to influence the way you vote or not vote. And like I said, election integrity is very important. I'm just going to make a side note. I've never heard anyone who won an election complain about the election. I'll just keep it real simple. Okay. Those who win don't complain. That's all I got to say. Okay.
thank you. And just to follow that up there, um, anytime there is a change in a voting location, any change to hours, just so you know, if it is done during early voting, it's for instance, we had a air conditioning unit that was out at one of our locations on the first day of early voting at one location. And so that location was going to be open for 2 weeks. And the temperature in the building was climbing above 80 degrees, which, if you're in and out, it's probably not a big deal. But we also want to take care of our workers, and we don't want to put our workers in an unsafe work environment. And so after discussing with our lawyers and with the Secretary of State's office and county administration and facilities maintenance about what could we do within this given time frame, and it was after all of Pima County had been hit, all of the emergency backup systems were being utilized in the same way, we made the tough decision to close that early voting site because we were still 2 weeks away from Election Day. There were still opportunities for people to vote. And unfortunately, there was nothing else we could do and keep my workers safe. And so we closed it. If that same thing were to happen on Election Day, we would be bringing in temporary air conditioning units or something like that. But they would only be able to close by going to court and closing that location and doing those kinds of things. Or if they needed to extend, I'm sorry, they wouldn't have to go to court to do it, but they would have to likely have extended hours or, something else like that. Like we don't take it lightly to do things like that. It has to be for some extreme reason. And always you can call our offices and we're here. Like my office doesn't facilitate elections day. My entire team is just on the phones on election day, answering your questions in support of the elections department. And their people are also answering phone calls. So we're just trying to help people find the closest place for them to drop off materials or vote in person. And so all of that is going to be up to date. Reach out to your local elections officers.
Thank you for that. And just a couple things in chat. Rosetta says, thank you for sharing helpful information. As a voter engagement and outreach advocate, we can never discount this critical opportunity to share. And then Michelle says, thank you for sharing. This information has been very helpful. So again, some kudos to a great presentation. And again, I'm not seeing any questions. So I would actually like to just add that, as a lifelong voter, I start voting when I can be able to vote, both in California and then when I moved to Arizona. And then later on, I was unaware that I actually can vote in tribal elections. I am Diné, member of the Navajo Nation, and it was through activists that who enrolled me in to voting on the Navajo Nation as well. And so that used to be in person, and eventually they moved to mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, as they call it. So I've been also voting in the Navajo Nation election as well too.